Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be remaking my tier list. I'm updating it. So, by far the most viewed videos on my channel are my monocolor, dual color, and tricolor Planeswalker tier list videos. And so, the most common request that I get from you guys, my viewers, is that I update this tier list because there have been a lot of Planeswalkers that have come out since I made this over the holidays and New Year's last year. And so I thought, okay, well, you know what? Let's use the calm before the storm. So we've got Core 2021 coming up soon. And so I figured I'd knock a few videos out of the park here. So the first one is definitely going to be the trio of videos that's going to be the tier lists. So you're going to be seeing those coming up in order. So mono, dual, and tri, and colorless. Now, I'm going to be going about it a little bit differently this time. So you'll see here that I've got tierlists.com. It's a fantastic website for making tier lists. I've gone and taken all the images of all the different Planeswalkers in the game, and then I've uploaded them, and I'm going to go ahead and be able to go through these one at a time. So as I'm going to be doing that, that means this is going to be a little bit longer of a video, so stick with me. I'm not going to do a complete in-depth analysis of every single Planeswalker. I did that on my first take, and it was an hour and 15 minutes, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's too long for me to upload onto YouTube. So this one, we're going to take a little bit less of an in-depth look of all of them, but definitely of the ones that you need to get. So for my ranking, S is the top tier. Those are the very best Planeswalkers in the game. Those are Planeswalkers that I think everyone needs to have. A are things that are just below S. They've got a role that they are probably the best at in the game, but they aren't as all-around good as the S-tier walkers, or maybe they're just a little bit harder to build around. So the A-tier walkers are things that I also think that everyone should have. The B-tier walkers are going to be Planeswalkers that are good. They're quite good, but you don't need to have them. It's just, it's kind of nice to have them, but you don't need them. C, those ones are going to be sort of like mediocre Planeswalkers. They're going to be more gimmicky than good, and so they're definitely not needed. D is going to be dreadful, very not good. Those ones are bad. Those ones are very bad. Don't get those. And E are the worst Planeswalkers in the game. So you definitely don't want any of those E walkers. Now, I am going to be taking some info from the Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest wiki. So a quick shout out to some of the guys that are working on that. I know that Volrak and Elf Needs Food are working on this. I'm not sure the whole crew, but just a special shout out to you guys who are all working on the Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest wiki. There's a whole lot of great information. I use it all the time. If you guys don't know that it exists, it does. You should use it. It's fantastic. So let's just get straight into our tier list. So this is going to be alphabetized. We're going to be starting with the Ajanis. And so over here, we're going to be starting with what is, I believe, Ajani 3. Ajani 3 is a B-tier Planeswalker for me. Ajani 3 is able to make, it's Ajani 3, is able to make a bunch of cat tokens with his third ability. He's got a summative mana total of +9, which is very good. So if you take a look at the mana bonuses, 3 + 3 + 3 is 9. I'm going to be using that summative total quite often. His health is 115, which is also very solid. So anything over 100 is passable. Anything under 100, in my opinion, is not passable. And the more that it is over 100, the better, right? So just so you've got an idea. For deck limits, in my opinion, you generally want to see at least 5 of each kind for the deck limits. So if I say the deck limits for this Planeswalker are just fine, that means that it's got better than 5. So you'll see that Ajani has 6 creatures, 5 spells, 8 supports at level 60. Now for all of these, I am going to be assuming they're level 60, just because the monocolor walkers are really easy to get to level 60, even for newer players. In my brand new account, the A New Start account that I ran, I found that it wasn't that difficult for me to get my walkers up to level 60, especially with all of the events that are giving boosted runes to how they were a few months ago. So the first ability here is mediocre. First and second creature get +4/+4. Nahiri does that better by giving all your creatures 4/4 for a first ability. The second ability, Atoned Scars, is going to return the first creature that costs 11 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with its reinforcements. there aren't a whole lot of creatures in white and colorless that you can bring back that are any good. So that second ability is kind of mediocre. But the third ability is quite good because you make 6 1/1 lifelink cat tokens every turn. And then the support itself is just a support. It's not an enchantment. So it's a pain in the rear to get rid of it. And that makes Ajani quite decent. So this Ajani goes into B tier for me. The next Ajani, this is going to be life gain Ajani right here. So I don't like this one very much. I don't think it's very good. It's definitely more on the gimmicky side. I'm putting him in the C tier, Strength of the Pride, just because he's got a +9 for the mana bonus, which is very solid. And that's really all that he has going for him. The first ability is not good. The second ability is not good. And the third ability can actually be kind of useful if you're making a good life gain deck. But this is definitely not a Planeswalker to die for. So Ajani, Strength of the Pride, you are not very good. Excuse me, sorry. I put him in C. He should be in D. The +9 is very good. It's nice. It's just not very good. So this brings us to Origins Chandra. Origins Chandra, I mean, I would put Origins Chandra in the E tier, but because Origins Chandra costs only 50... Ooh, I just kicked my table. I'm sorry. Everything just shook. Because Origins Chandra only costs 50 mana crystals, I'm going to take that as a point in Origins Chandra's favor. Origins Chandra has a summative mana total of +5 at 3/1/1. Origins Chandra can use 10 creatures and 10 spells, which is pretty fantastic. But Origins Chandra has less than 100 health, and Origins Chandra's abilities are very much so lackluster. This brings us to Chandra, Torch of Defiance. This is the Kaladesh Chandra. Kaladesh Chandra is garbage. All 3 of her abilities are trash. Do not get Chandra, Torch of Defiance. If you have Chandra, Torch of Defiance, it's probably because you bought the holiday bundle that she came in that was actually quite cheap for an in-app purchase at the time. And you got it because it was a good deal for everything else in the bundle. She's got +9 to her mana bonus, but all 3 abilities are bad. So do not get Chandra, Torch of Defiance, not even for fun. She's not fun. She's just bad. This brings us to Chandra, Awakened Inferno. Chandra, Awakened Inferno is absolutely an A tier walker. If you're a new player, I would even consider her an S tier walker. On my A New Start account, she carried my account until I got a few of the other S tier walkers. She is very good. So her abilities are all useful. The first and the third, especially, for that matter. I actually in the God Pharaoh event, I beat Bolas. You playing 0 cards and just using this Chandra's first ability. Now I know that you can do that with Origins Chandra also, but this one it stacks up pretty quickly to the point that first ability was doing like 49 damage a turn, which is nice. Now, granted, you're not going to get that in PvP. It's a very slow gain. You get the support with the shields, and as you play more of them, it stacks the shields, and it does damage based on the number of reinforcements on the support. Fireball, however, is a fantastic ability. It's going to effectively kill a creature and a vanguard, and it's going to burn your opponent. Now, I know that some people like to keep this Chandra at level 59 so that they can just deal the damage to anything they want. But I happen to think that it's better to level her up to 60 and just save the ability for when your opponent plays a creature. So, yeah, very good Planeswalker. You absolutely want to have that. This brings us to Elspeth, Sun's Champion. We've got Sun's Champion and Sun's Nemesis. Sun's Champion has the highest white mana bonus in the game at +7. That's very good. Her abilities, on the other hand, they go up and down based on what cards are available. Namely, her first and second ability aren't great. Her first ability is going to make tokens. Those tokens for 9 are going to have Exert 6 to destroy a creature. Exert means that 6 goes down every single turn. It's an activated gem. It's really not going to make any difference. You're probably going to destroy a creature every few games with that ability if you're using it regularly, but not very much. The second ability is bad. You have to actually match the activated gems to get your creatures pumped, but the third ability is quite nice. So 4 of your activated gems are destroyed and triggered. So as we get more cards that have activated abilities, Elspeth inherently becomes significantly better. So with, for example, the ultimatums that came out in Ikoria, those ultimatums, there are a number of them that are quite good and that also have white in their mana cost, which makes Elspeth significantly better because of Pyromancer's Goggles. Because Pyromancer's Goggles are always standard, and they're going to go ahead and enable you to fetch and play things for free if you just can trigger the activated gems. So this Elspeth is in a good place right now. Like I said, she goes up and down. She used to be in the S tier for me back when Core 19 was out and we had Luminarch's Ascension. But without that card, she's just solidly A tier. Having +7 to white is good. And then that third ability gives you a lot of flexibility. This brings us to Elspeth Sun's Nemesis. Elspeth Sun's Nemesis is one of those gimmicky cool walkers that isn't bad, but just isn't good. I'm really hoping that Elspeth Sun's Nemesis is going to become better when they update Buried. They said that they being Octagon, said that they're planning on updating how Buried works. I know in my talking with them that they mentioned that Buried was the most difficult mechanic they've ever tried to implement in the game. It was very challenging to implement this mechanic. And so I'd really like to see more come out of it because I think it has a lot of potential to be a very powerful mechanic. It's just not there right now. So all three of her abilities are good abilities. It's just none of them are currently great abilities. And so since none of them are currently great abilities, she just isn't currently great. She's just good. The third ability gives you a leader for soldiers, which can be kind of cool, but when March of the Multitudes runs out of standard, we're going to lose our best soldier creator. The second ability, Glimpse of Dawn, can be quite strong, especially if you have something that is going to benefit from having higher power, like as in it has some ability that does extra things based on power. But for the most part, she's just mediocre, right? So she's good, she's not great, she's kind of gimmicky. Which brings us to Fblthp. Fblthp was introduced with the Fblthp event. Fblthp is not good. Fblthp is kind of cool in that Fblthp has really neat mana gains. Fblthp has a plus to every single color, but in spite having that plus to every single color, Fblthp's abilities are not that good. So the first ability is going to return your own creature, not great. The second ability is going to shuffle a creature into its owner's library, but it gives them another creature back for free anyways, even though it's a 4/4, no. And then the third ability is kind of cool in that it draws you cards, gives them mana, and then you shuffle all non-token creatures away. Except that you can't really rely on it because what if your opponent is playing tokens? You never know that, and so that can be kind of dangerous. I know that you can run like the blue leyline that gets rid of tokens with Fblthp, but no, Fblthp is not that good. This brings us to the first Garruk. First Garruk is actually a very solid planeswalker. First Garruk has 3 separate abilities that are going to give us creatures. However, as it has 3 separate abilities that give us creatures, it's kind of a bummer. And Garruk is massively outclassed by both Nissa Worldwaker, which is also a mono-green planeswalker, and by the other Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, which is a dual-color walker. So the benefits to Garruk are that you have a lot of really easy ways to play creature tokens, but as I mentioned, better ways of making tokens. And then also currently in Standard, you make these 2/2 wolf tokens, which goes really well with the card Voja, except that Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, like I said, does it better. So the other thing that's kind of cool that Garruk Wildspeaker has is that there's a limit for 10 spells, so you can run 10 spells in Garruk, which is kind of cool. But that's about it. He's more of a gimmicky walker that's outclassed, but nonetheless, the abilities are still decent, so Garruk is in the C tier. This brings us to Origins Gideon. Origins Gideon is sort of going to get relegated to the same place as a lot of the Origins walkers. He would be in the E tier, not very good, except that he's only 50 crystals. Now, Gideon is actually quite good for newer players, and so just being able to have the Defender and the Berserker and giving things flying and regenerate and all that kind of stuff, like it lets you win a lot of fights that you wouldn't be able to otherwise with your collection. But as you develop in the game, there are just so many better planeswalkers. So Gideon is decent, but not great. So next is going to be Gideon from it's Ally Gideon. Ally Gideon is hot garbage. Now, Ally Gideon does have a very specific use. So Ally Gideon, here we are, Ally of Zendikar. I'm calling him Ally Gideon because Gideon is going to make ally creatures and then is also going to be buffing ally creatures. And maybe if in the upcoming Zendikar set we get a bunch of allies, maybe this Gideon becomes slightly better, but still bad anyways. I don't know. The summoning a 4/4 Hoplite token with haste and vigilance is actually quite cool because it only costs 6 loyalty and it dies at the beginning of your next turn. So for losing creature objectives, this Planeswalker is actually kind of decent. But nonetheless, all the abilities are otherwise generally pretty weak. Having a maximum of +3 with 2/2 means that he's got a summative total of 7, which is bad. Gideon Ally of Zendikar is a Planeswalker that you should absolutely skip. Don't get it. This brings us to Gideon of Amonkhet. Gideon of Amonkhet has actually quite a strong second ability, but the rest of Gideon from Amonkhet's abilities are substandard. I know, once again, for newer players, Gideon of the Trials isn't actually all that terrible because the second and third ability are going to let you do some pretty cool things, and the +9 with the +5 to white is actually pretty decent. But the first ability, summoning the 4/4 with reach, is not good. The second ability, you have to exile one of your creatures. I've seen some really cool things that newer players have done with Forged by Might, but it's just a little bit lackluster. And then the last creatures that you control that are exiled are returned to the battlefield. I mean, you can exile creatures from your hand, put them back into play, but this brings us to Gideon Blackblade. Gideon Blackblade is another one that's actually pretty decent. The real failing for Gideon Blackblade is just that his abilities cost way, way, way too much. Gideon Blackblade needs a very minor tweak. If Gideon Blackblade gets a very minor tweak, he's going to become an amazing walker. He's got that very special +4, 3, 2, 1 mana bonus. He's got 122 health, which is very good. But this first ability needs to cost 6 instead of 9, and it needs to be a permanent buff instead of until the beginning of your next turn. And then the third ability, Oathsworn, which makes a token that gives you prevent damage, which is incredible. It's fantastic, but 24 loyalty is way too much. This should cost like 18, maybe 21, preferably 18 to make him good. So yeah, he just costs too much. When you get him working, he's very good, but the problem is that you have to get him working. All right, the next Planeswalker is Jace, Unraveler of Secret. No, I'm kidding. I'm just pretending that Origins Jace doesn't exist. So should you. Origins Jace isn't just but is also garbage. Don't get Origins Jace. Even if you're a brand new player, you don't need to waste your resources on this piece of trash. Just get a different blue Planeswalker. There are so many good blue Planeswalkers in this game, especially this next Jace that's going to come up. And the next Jace is our first S-tier Planeswalker on the list. So Jace Unraveler is one of my favorite Planeswalkers in the game. I still get an incredible amount of use out of Unraveler of Secrets. I've made a Planeswalker showcase on Jace. Might have even been like the first, no, it was the second Planeswalker I did it off of. So he's also got that +9. And even though his first two abilities are kind of lackluster, his third ability is just so incredibly good. So at level 60, you're going to create a support with 6 shields, which means it doesn't break to nonsense like Storm the Vault or Urza. You can match it a bunch of times. And when you draw a card, each of your creatures gains a permanent +4/+4. That means that if you draw 6 cards in a turn, you're getting +72 power from drawing those cards. So there's always stuff that lets you draw cards in this game. Jace Unraveler of Secrets is able to do things that really no other Planeswalker is able to do, and is able to buff your creatures in ways that other blue Planeswalkers can't. Jace Unraveler of Secrets is really easy to build around. You can build pauper decks off of him really easily. Regardless of what stage of the game you're at, Jace is amazing. With really good cards, Jace is amazing, and with more beginner options, Jace is still amazing. So Jace Unraveler of Secrets is fantastic for everyone. This brings us to Dirty Jace, Pirate Jace, Jace that has less than 100 health, Jace that should not be here, Jace that is not good, Cunning Castaway. We don't like Cunning Castaway. Cunning Castaway is kind of like Fblthp with having bonuses to every color, but he has less than 100 health. He only allows you to run 4 supports, which in blue is terrible. And then all 3 of his abilities are based on illusions and damage and cards, and they're just nothing that's any good. The third ability looks like it could be really cool because of the activating and gaining loyalty, but let's face it, Jace Unraveler of Secrets, not worth it, don't get him. This brings us to yet another Red Walker. You might think, wow, Nalthazar, you just love the red. And I do, but it's just that there are some really darn good mono-red planeswalkers. So Jaya is fantastic. Jaya is a spell-based planeswalker. And so her usefulness is going to go up and down based on what spells are available in Standard. Currently, we've got like the golden age of red spells with Electro Dominance and the Ultimatums and expansion and stuff like that. But nonetheless, those are going to be there are going to be a lot of very powerful red spells that are hanging around for a while. Jaya has 108 health, which is meh. She's got +9 to her mana bonuses, but the abilities are really what make her. So the first ability is going to fetch a spell, and then it gives the first spell in your hand 10 mana. That's a significant amount of mana to gain from a 6 loyalty first ability. The second ability, Burning Books, is not particularly great. I wouldn't focus on it too much, although the card draw can be useful. The third ability is really what makes Jaya. So the third ability, you're going to create a support token with 4 shields, and whenever you draw a spell, immediately give that spell full mana and create a copy of it. That is incredible. If you're running red cards that allow you to draw cards, you're going to draw extra cards, and all the cards that you draw are going to, if they're spells, they're going to get full mana and get copied. So you get to play a ton of spells with Jaya. Really, the only thing that's keeping Jaya from being an S tier is that Rawl exists. So there is a better planeswalker for spells, but Jaya is like this close. She's very good, and she costs less mana crystals to buy, and she costs less mana runes to level up. So she's fantastic. This brings us to Koth of the Hammer. Koth is another S tier planeswalker for me. Now Koth is kind of in between S and A at this point. Just because we have Brokon, and it's hard to justify the use of Koth over Sarkhan Unbroken. But Koth has a few things going for him even today. So Koth allows you to run a mana curve that you can't run with any other planeswalker in the game. Koth has the singular highest mana bonus in the game with +9 to red. Koth allows you to run 10 creatures, which is bad. Never run 10 creatures. Allows you to run 3 supports, which is actually really bad for Koth. It's the one thing that actually holds Koth back. But Koth has amazing abilities to go with that mana bonus. So the first ability, Reshape the Land, where you destroy 12 non-red gems, is huge. You get so much mana out of that ability, it's almost unfair. His first ability is better than many Planeswalkers' third abilities. So things that you'd be paying 18 to 24 loyalty for, you're going to be paying 6 for with Koth. And not only are you only paying 6 for it, but because you're destroying all those gems, you're going to be getting a whole bunch of loyalty back. So that means that Koth can just keep reusing that ability over and over again. The second ability, Rage of the Mountain, you're going to use sometimes. It'll help you pick up a win here and there. It'll give you some removal because of the Berserker. But Strength of the Mountain is very strong. The support has 10 shields. It's not going to break unless support destruction is played. And whenever any player, that includes your opponent, matches a red gem, all your creatures get +4/+4. So for the most part with Koth, you're probably just going to be spamming your first ability, but the third ability and the second ability are still very strong abilities. Koth is a very strong planeswalker. Do not sleep on Koth, probably because he's got spiky shoulders and stuff. Not comfortable to sleep on, and the lava. So, no gusto. All right, the Lilianas, all 42 of them. Oh, geez. No, but really, there's not 42 of them. There are 5 of them, and going on 6 in Core 2021. So, our first Liliana is Innistrad Liliana. Innistrad Liliana has really fallen, guys. When I first started playing back in Innistrad, this Liliana would have probably been an S-tier planeswalker, but it's just there really isn't a major presence for zombies in the game right now. Prized Amalgam just doesn't have the same power that it used to. And so this third ability that's going to make it so that when one of your zombies dies, you summon an 8/8 zombie is just not great. The first and second ability are both bad. Giving +4/+4 to each of your zombies for 15 is bad. Really, really bad. And the first ability to discard a card and gain 6 mana is also bad. There's just really... I'm sorry, Lily. You just haven't aged well. So this brings us to Liliana Death's Majesty. So Death's Majesty is a C tier for me. She's a C tier because she has her first ability that lets you destroy one of your own creatures and bring it back, which is really nifty for you need to lose creature objectives. So she's really good for that, kind of in the way that other Gideon was. except that her other abilities complement it very nicely. So the second ability, Raise Zombie, is going to allow you to take the last zombie you controlled and return it to the battlefield and pump it up. When you use that first ability, Anoint, when the creature dies, it permanently becomes a zombie, even when it dies. So that means that you use it, it dies, it comes back, and then if your opponent plays removal on it, you can actually use the second ability, Raise Zombie, and just bring it right back. So that gives her a little bit of extra oomph. 115 health is pretty solid. Having +5 to black is great. And then the third ability is a really cool ability because it doesn't reinforce, which means that every time you use the ability, you get another copy of that support on the battlefield. Zombie tokens aren't currently a thing, even though a mass exists, but if that changes, she will become a lot better. This brings us to Origins Liliana. She is the best of the Origins Planeswalkers, no doubt about it. She would be an S tier for me if they would just tweak her a little bit, improve her mana bonuses to be like +7 across the board or +8, give her over 100 health, and then tweak her second ability so it's not worthless. But she's definitely a Planeswalker that you want to get to level 60. She's a formidable opponent no matter what tier you're in and pretty much no matter what your collection is. Her first ability, making you discard your first card, is infuriating. The third ability, at 15 loyalty, to bring your last 3 creatures that were destroyed back to the battlefield, is a very good ability too, especially in conjunction with that first ability. Her deck limits are amazing. So she's just an all-around fantastic Planeswalker. She is the black Planeswalker that I would start with as a new player. This brings us to my personal favorite Liliana. Now I have to be objective, and it's really hard to be objective with her given all the graveyard cards that came out in Ikoria. And those cards are amazing, but this Planeswalker is not. So her first ability lets you destroy cards from your library, which is going to force feed your graveyard really, really quickly. Her +7 to black is the highest single plus to black in the game, tied with the monocolored Sorin. But that first ability to destroy the top 8 cards of your library is really what makes her. It's a very unique ability, and it makes her quite good. It's just that she's very gimmicky. You have to have specific graveyard cards for her to work. She's not powerful on her own. Her third ability is just a strictly worse ability than Origins Liliana. You bring back your first 3 zombies, they have to be zombies, and they cost 7. You don't even get them back for free. You have to pay 21 mana to bring them out. So if you use her, you're only using her for her first ability. Her first ability is amazing, though. And this brings us to Dreadhorde General. Liliana Dreadhorde General is another very solid Planeswalker. She's got a mass. The only thing that really brings her down, the reason why I'm putting her just below that B tier, is just that her second ability is an exact copy of her third ability, but just worse. Why? I don't understand it. She's got this beautiful 4-3-2-1 spread. Her first ability is going to make you tokens, which is woohoo, I guess. I don't know. Her second ability and her third ability, if you look at them, are basically the same thing, though. It's just the third ability is better and makes you tokens. So why would you use the second ability unless you are about to die? I don't know. Anyways, she's good, but she's not great. This brings us to Luca. Now, I know you probably are going to start hearing the fan from my computer soon. I apologize about that. I am speaking a little bit quicker than normal. There are a lot of monocolored walkers, and I'm trying to get through all of them. Luca is absolutely an A-tier Planeswalker. Luca is very, very strong. If you haven't seen my video on Luca, you should watch my video on Luca. But his third ability is amazing. His first and second ability are just absolute trash. They're garbage. They're not worth using at all. He's got 117 health, which is nice. The deck limits are very solid in that you get 6 to both spells and supports. But this third ability it does damage unlike any other Planeswalker ability in the game, honestly. So your creatures get XX is pointless because that's based on the number of creatures in your exile. It's the last portion of this ability. So all your creatures gain double strike, and then you deal damage equal to the sum of your creature's power to your opponent's Planeswalker. There are so many powerful creatures in this game. Quartzwood Crasher alone with Predator's squad is one of the most terrifying things. Like, I tried using this in a PvE event, and I used that ability. I had 200, sorry, I bumped my table. I had 200 power in creatures, which means that this ability then made it so that the 200 power was doing an extra 200, and then it did an extra 200 because of the ability itself, which was 600 damage, which meant that my opponent died. Except I have stuff like that happen all the time with Luca. Luca is very powerful, very much so worth having. The downside to Luca is that when you use that third ability, you just win, and the other two abilities aren't great. If the other two abilities were actually decent abilities, then Luca would be an S tier Planeswalker for me. But he's just such a melt factory, melt machine, that he's unfortunately going to be A because it's kind of hard to reach objectives with him. This brings us to Moo. She can go ahead and moo at Jace down here. She's terrible. All three of her abilities are bad. You need to get blue landfalls for her third ability in order to get like a mini finale of Revelation. You can do better, Moo. I'm sorry, you can do better. Nissa. Origins Nissa is actually quite decent. I really like Origins Nissa. I really hope they tweak her just a little bit. She's very solid. She's only going to convert 3 gems to green with her first ability, which is still good. She draws cards with her first ability, which is good. Her second ability is going to pump up creatures. I feel like that second ability should be kind of like Koth's, though. It should give them Berserker and Trample. I mean, this is a green walker we're talking about. And then her third ability, and I'm just going to go to her really fast because of the name of the third ability. I really think that the third ability that converts 25 gems to green, you'll see that it's called Nature's Regrowth. Since it's Regrowth, I feel like it should give you like your first 3 cards from your graveyard back to your hand and then convert 25 gems to green. So that would make her a very viable Planeswalker. Definitely not too powerful, but it would be a really cool ability. This brings us to one of my favorite Planeswalkers. I know, Guilherme, I know at Octagon, I know that this one's your favorite Planeswalker, but she's going in the D tier just because Energize hasn't really moved. It doesn't do anything anymore, really. It's just that her third ability, and the reason why she's not in the garbage tier, is just that her third ability is still going to power up your creatures an incredible amount. Even if you don't have anything else energized on the board, it's going to give you plus 60 damage if you've got 3 creatures down, which is very respectable. It's just at 24 loyalty. Yeah. This brings us to, my baby, Nissa Worldwaker. She is the only monocolored Planeswalker that I think is like a pure standout S tier, even if you were to compare her to the 3 color walkers. She is the only monocolored walker that I consistently use over 3 colored walkers. Her first ability is just that good. It's unlike any other green Planeswalker. So she makes tokens on her first ability that have haste, so they immediately swing, which is great. She has fantastic deck limits. Her health is good. Her mana bonuses are my favorite spread in the game with the 4-3-2-1. I'm not including Saheeli in that favorite spread, by the way, nor things like Karn boosted. The first ability is going to make those 4 tokens for 9, just like almost all of our other token producers, but then it's going to convert 6 gems to green. So our other 2 Nissas that convert gems to green are going to be converting 3 and 4 with their first ability. This one converts 6, and you get 4 tokens, which is just so good. I mean, the amount of times that my opponent has used removal to get rid of those tokens, enabling me to then play like my big baddies and then completely wipe their face is incredible. The second ability, World Wake, is more of like you'll use it sometimes. It draws you cards, but the Awaken on it is really bad because the Awaken 4 basically basically makes your cards cost 4 more mana, so not good. Heart of Zendikar, however, is awesome. It can just win you games outright. You're getting an 8/8 token with haste and trample, and it's a leader to elemental, so it's going to eat up those first ability tokens. And on top of that, if it's reinforced 6 or more times, it gets regenerate, which is but when it's reinforced 12 or more times, so you've used your ability 3 times, +1, you're going to give it hexproof. And so that hexproof makes it so your opponent can't really kill it, and it's going to kill your opponent. Nissa Worldwaker is good regardless of your collection. She's amazing for popper decks. She's like my go-to popper queen. She's just amazing all around. So if you've got like the top cards in the game, she's a killer. And if you've got like not so good cards, she's a killer. Unfortunately, cards like Ulashed and Court of Calling are going to be rotating out. But like even in my new start account, I picked up Nissa pretty early on, and I was able to get Ulashed to close to 100 power with like all of the garbage commons and uncommons and stuff from Origins that I had gotten. So she's really, really good. This brings us to Ob Nixilis. Ob Nixilis is absolutely in the B tier. I'd put Ob Nixilis in the A. You might be like, wow, Nalthazar, you've dropped Ob Nixilis. I thought you loved Ob Nixilis. And I do. It's just his mana gains are so incredibly terrible. It's unfortunate. He's got the Origin Starters mana boost of +5. However, that being said, his abilities are incredible. He's got 888 for his deck limits. He's got 119 health, which is amazing. His first ability only costs 3 loyalty, and it makes you draw 2 cards, which is amazing. His second ability destroys a creature, which is very good. And his third ability is otherworldly strong, with creating a support that says, whenever any player draws a card, deal 8 damage to your opponent. Which means that your first ability, once you've used your third, basically just becomes 3 loyalty, deals 16 damage to your opponent. And given that you're going to draw a card at the beginning of your turn, that's going to be 24 damage to your opponent every turn, which is very substantial. That's assuming your opponent is not drawing cards. If they are, you're doing 32. And if you got anything else to draw cards, that just keeps going up. So Ob Nixilis is an absolute powerhouse. If they improved these mana bonuses, he would be an S tier, no doubt. No doubt, no doubt. It's just that there happen to be some other really good Black Planeswalkers in the game now. So, yeah, he falls just a little bit. This brings us to Sarkhan. This Sarkhan is actually pretty decent. He's not honestly that terrible. I overlooked him a little bit in my previous ranking. And he's actually got some kind of useful abilities. He's got +9. He's got a 7/6/6 spread, which is just fine. But his second and third ability are both pretty decent. So the third ability is going to give you a 20/20 dragon with haste. So if you don't have a whole lot in your collection, that can be nice as a finisher. The red mana bonus boost and then boosting your creatures is really nice. But yeah, so this brings us to Sorin. Sorin is bad. I'm sorry, guys. Sorin's abilities hinge off of just vampires. We don't really have vampires in the game. As we get more vampires, I'm sure that Sorin could go up. But it's really just his first and his third ability. I really don't like Sorin. Sorin is currently a D tier walker, even though Sorin has a +7 to black, which is amazing. I mean, you could say, wow, you're putting Sorin with all these other walkers that you have here, and it's just that he doesn't do anything, and that's my problem with him. If we get a vampire set, if Innistrad comes back, or if we see in Zendikar a whole bunch of vampires, don't get me wrong, Sorin could boost up to C tier, or maybe even B tier if vampires were like the meta. But the thing is just that we don't have vampires. So, yeah, we've got the 2 Tezzerets down here. Our first Tezzeret over here is going to go in the D tier. His third ability is the only ability that's worth using. His first ability, unfortunately, just creates 4 Thopter tokens and nothing else for 9 loyalty. I mean, we have a whole bunch of other Planeswalkers that make 4 tokens for 9, but they also get something else out of it. This Tezzeret does not. The second ability, not good. The third ability is amazing. It's like super killer instinct on like steroids, except that it costs 24 loyalty, which is kind of a game breaker for me. We've got this Tezzy over here. I believe it's the Ethereum Sculptor, or maybe I was just looking at Ethereum Sculptor and I was just... Yeah, okay, I think it's Ethereum Sculptor. Am I right? No, the Seeker, darn it. Oh well. Tezzeret the Seeker is really bad. Really, really bad. So the first ability to improve your supports is cool, but he just doesn't do a whole lot, so I'm really not a fan of him. Not good. This brings us to our 3 Vivians. So I've gotten a heck of a lot of play in with these Vivians lately, especially since the Ikoria Vivian came out. I've been playing Vivian to get a better feel for the Vivians. And so, interestingly, all 3 Vivians are pretty decent. These 2 Vivians here, the very first one we got and the second one we got, both have +5 to green, which is very special. We seem to get really low green mana bonuses on Planeswalkers, maybe because green gem conversion is a thing. I don't know. But these 2 are both C Planeswalkers for me. They're both very good. And so the real tough one for me was the Monster Hunter Vivian. I originally placed her in B, but the more that I've played with her and the more that I've played with the other Vivians, I like her a little bit better than the Arcbow one right over here. But honestly, she's in the C tier. She's good. She's definitely good. I really like her for creature objectives, and if Luca didn't come out, maybe I'd put her up to B. But just after playing Luca, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what a mono Planeswalker should be. So this is my final list right now for what the monocolored tier list looks like. I'd love to hear how yours deviates. If you think I'm missing anything, let me know. But really, the important thing to think about is the S, A, and B tier, that SAB tier. Especially the S and the A, those are Planeswalkers that everyone needs to have. B are Planeswalkers that you probably should have. So I hope this was informative for you. I hope it helps you with your decision on which Planeswalkers to target, especially from the mono color. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the dual color walker video.